Welcome to the Primal Persistence Podcast, the podcast where I will give you health and fitness tips for your journey toward health and fitness through knowledge from me and guests that we both can learn from. So let's get started with the Primal Persistence Podcast. Enjoy. Welcome to the show. Today I have Ben. Ben actually is my coach. I bought a couple of courses from Ben, and he is a phenomenal teacher. With especially, I've only enjoyed the online part, but Ben has a very fantastic way of teaching things. Especially for me, I started with a live mastermind it's called the pull-up, it's called the kipping pull-up and the muscle-up. This is a fantastic way, and I've never met, it inspired me to move more online. That's why I would like to have Ben on to teach you all of you a lot more on how to move your body and make it more fun to use your body for training and getting healthy. And I would like to introduce you to Ben and let Ben tell you a little bit more about Ben and why he is so phenomenal in training and style. Welcome, Ben.
Man, I'm really excited to be here, and thanks so much for the intro. I still actually remember I believe it was called the Performance Pull-Up Mastermind, and it was one of my first attempts to figure out how to take the whole mentality of coaching athletes, coaching people, and helping them learn pretty complex things, but doing it online. That was one of my kind of like initial steps in there, and it was a great success. And since then, we've done lots of cool things to help coach other people who are interested in learning things like pull-ups and muscle-ups and all these fancy movements. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I'd say that the way that I kind of got started, or a little bit about my background, is that in college, or while I was going to the North Carolina State University in North Carolina, United States, I found something called CrossFit. And when I found CrossFit, it really made me fall in love with fitness in general. Now, I am not one of those people that thinks that CrossFit is the only way to get fit. There's a lot of people kind of in the industry that either hate it, or they love it, or they think it's the only thing you can do, or they think it's the worst possible thing for you. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that CrossFit can be used as a really great tool to get people fit and in shape. If it ends up being your thing, I think it's a great way to just fall in love with the sport of fitness and ultimately make you a happier, healthier person. But if it's not your thing, that's totally fine too. The whole key with fitness is you need to find something that gets you excited. Because if it gets you excited, that's what's going to get you in the door. Basically, if I'm not excited to do a workout routine, the chances of me sticking with it are very, very slim. And for me, I think fitness is a lifelong pursuit. You can't just get into a workout routine and do it for maybe a month or so and expect to have long-lasting change. I think you really need to find something that you're going to be a student of and that you're going to fall in love with for a long period of time. So CrossFit and that kind of training has kind of become a part of my life. And basically through falling in love with it, I eventually became a coach and opened up my own gym, and then actually started my own online training company. And it's really just kind of been my love and passion, is to try to explain complicated things in a really simple way and just really help as many people as possible fall in love with the sport. And that's pretty much it. So that's my background.
I have a question on your personal training in CrossFit. You've been competing a bit before you opened up your company, right?
Yeah. I used to do quite a bit of competing, actually.
And you're still competing? I've seen some of your fantastic shows in Japan, and you've done some quite I like your YouTube channel a lot as well, and you've done some cool events in Japan. It's not quite as big the CrossFit or functional movement in Japan as it is in the States.
It's not so big over here, CrossFit, but I've done a couple events. Honestly, I'd say I'm focused a lot less on competing than I am coaching anymore. Now I'm very focused on coaching and trying to help other people. And I have a few people that have made it all the way to the CrossFit Games, and then I have a few people, or I'd say the majority of the people I coach are just people who want to take it up a notch. I mean, that's really it. So basically, if I had to put my finger on it, I'd say I'm more of a coach now than an athlete, but still, I love to compete. I'll be competing until the day that I die, whether it's just me competing against myself. I think that's the biggest and best competition of them all. It's just learning how to push yourself past your own mental barriers and see how far you can take it.
Fantastic. I have a question for you. How has this affected your own training when you move more towards being a trainer and coaching other people? Has this made your own training better when you stepped a little back and not focusing that much on training and then maybe just taking it a little more loose? Has this helped your training, or has it stepped your own performance a little down?
Well, so yes, my performance has definitely decreased. I'm still nearly as strong as I used to be, but the being able to push it really, really hard and really fast in a workout for a long period of time, that has certainly dropped off because you need to stay at a really high level to maintain that kind of stuff. But I will say that training has become more of a, I try to keep my own training and my coaching separate. So basically, coaching is kind of what I do for work. And then when I'm training, I try to just think out of it, it's kind of still like my habit. It's something that I've always done, and it's something that I hopefully always will do. And if I can only get into the gym, maybe 2 days in a week or 3 days in a week, I don't beat myself up for it. Sure, I like to get in 5 times a week and then maybe have another active rest day, But if I don't get in every single day, I don't beat myself up for it. I just know that, every time I'm in there, I try to stay focused and have some fun. And, the bottom line is, as long as I'm having fun with it, then it's good. And I know that I'll keep going back. So I kind of keep them separate. I'm definitely not as fit as I used to be, though. I mean, when I was competing, it was, 3 to 4 hours a day of pretty intense stuff. And when you do that, your body certainly can move a lot quicker and a lot stronger. And now that I've kind of phased it back a little bit, I think I have a better, healthier balance between real life and gym life now. So that's good.
Fantastic. That was exactly what I was hoping for. That you don't need to obsess about your training and you can step it back, but still have a fantastic both life and training, and just have it in a synergistic way. So 1 week it's, as you said, 3 times, and then another week it's full out all the week, and it just works. You work out when your body and your time gives you what you need. And this is what I see a lot of people that I work with, and a lot of people listening to the show and the questions, they are frustrated. I cannot work out this week. How do I do this? Just tell them that they need to step back, and then if your body gives you more times next week, then give it all.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things that I run into a lot with the athletes I coach is, I have these step-by-step progressions, and I have 8-week training programs where, on day 1, you're supposed to do this. Day 2, you're supposed to do this. And I oftentimes hear people get pretty frustrated with, hey, I'm really behind. I'm so sorry. I'm only on day 7 when I know I'm supposed to be on day 14. I just want to let you know. And they feel really guilty about it. And it's one thing that I'm really trying to get across with everybody, especially lately in my courses, is it's okay. It's okay to kind of to take your time, and it's okay to miss a couple days. And sometimes taking that pressure off of yourself will help you get into the gym. But there is a delicate balance between making excuses and then also just living with your restrictions or living with your circumstances. If you have kids and dogs, for me, I have 2 dogs. I don't have any human children yet, but I do have 2 furry children, as I call them. And the other day, one of my dogs had to go to the emergency vet because she was throwing up, and I was worried she was really, really sick. So I took her to the vet, and it ended up becoming like a couple-day ordeal where I had to take her back. And did I work out both of those days? No, I didn't, because family first, and that's okay. And I didn't beat myself up about it. When I had the time, I was thankful for that time, and I used it, and I went to the gym. But there's a delicate balance between that, and then that's like what I would argue like a very valid reason not to get in and to not beat yourself up about it. But then on the other side of things, if let's say your schedule is pretty predictable, you're busy, but it's pretty predictable, and instead of waking up at the designated time for your alarm, let's say your alarm goes off at 6 a.m., and instead of getting up at 6 a.m., you hit snooze to try to squeeze in another 10 minutes of sleep, and then you hit snooze again, and then you jump out of bed at 7 and rush to get to work. I would argue that your excuse is invalid, right? Like, did you really get any extra sleep, or do you still feel just as tired? How much better would you have felt if you overcame that resistance and got out of bed and knocked out a 45-minute workout? You'll probably feel a lot better about yourself. So again, I think there's a delicate balance, and you kind of have to call yourself out on whether you're making, legitimate or you're making excuses, which are illegitimate. They're kind of just you not wanting to be your best version of yourself. And then there's also life circumstances, which I fully believe that, if life circumstances make it so that you can't get to the gym, maybe for an entire week, it's totally okay. And you just need to be thankful for when you can get back in there. So I think it's really important for anybody, athletes or just people who want to get in better shape or who are working on their diet or anything like that. You just have to realize and understand the difference between, your actual life circumstances and what is realistic, and then whether you're making up really, really stupid excuses. I think there's a delicate balance between the two.
Fantastic. This leads me very good into my next question for you. I'm very strong on building a strength base for health and longevity. And I would like your look on body weight versus weight training or CrossFit style training, which is primarily in these days moved towards a lot of weight-based training. What are your thoughts on this for the normal people building a strong base, especially talking about doing gymnastic movements as well and building a base?
I think it all comes down to what your preference is. So me personally, I love lifting weights. I love having a barbell in my hand and doing all kinds of exciting stuff there. But what I see with a lot of people is they get so wrapped up in that kind of training that, let's say they go on a 2-week vacation and they can't get into a real gym with a barbell. And they're like, well, I can't work out. There's nothing for me to do, right? If I don't have my dumbbells and my cable machine and my barbell, then, I can't work out. And I just think that's absolutely ridiculous, right? God gave us an amazing set of weights, and that is our arms and legs and our torso. And we can do a lot of stuff with that. I mean, there are some incredibly fit people that only do push-ups and running and sit-ups and all kinds of fun stuff. So I would highly recommend people, even if you like and love all the barbell and kind of bodybuilding, traditional like weight training stuff, don't ever allow yourself to get so wrapped up and locked into that training that you can't utilize your body. And then on top of that, I think one of the best ways to get, let's say, a beginner into strength training is to teach them how to move their body properly, like air squats and push-ups and burpees and pull-ups and things like that are just fantastic. And even handstands, and just holding a handstand up against a wall. These are just fantastic ways to teach your body how to move properly, understand what it feels like to do things with a little bit of stress, because your body has some weight to it. And then what's cool is that once you understand how you're moving and how to move properly and your body feels good in those positions, then you can always add in extra layers of weights and stuff like that. So I think both of, the body weight versus, strength training, both of them are great ways to get in shape, but they're not mutually exclusive. I think that to have the strength training, you definitely need to make sure that you have a handle on your body weight training, and then vice versa. It's kind of pointless to be really good at strength training, but you can hardly do anything with your body, which, in my opinion, functional movement and functional training is so much better. If you look at people who are bodybuilders and they get really huge and jacked and they have all this muscle, but then they can hardly move themselves. They can hardly walk up the stairs without getting exhausted. Or if you told them to move a piece of furniture, they might throw out their back because it's not, perfectly positioned. They can't do anything that involves being, in a normal human position. They have to be like all strapped up with weightlifting gear and stuff like that. I just think that's so silly. So I think it's really important to have both aspects in your training. But if you're going to start with one, start with body weight.
Start with body weight. Fantastic. I would like to ask you a question on body weight. And as you said, learn to move your body first. Can you give some advice on general strength movement? What would you said? Let's say a beginner starting, eating healthier, getting into more movement, and maybe would like to do a pull-up someday. That's the goal. They're very close to their push-up and would like to get a pull-up, and they're working on their squat, and maybe one day and towards getting better here and getting into a pistol squat. What would you advise them working on in a general sense of training?
Well, so for all those movements, what's cool about really any movement, especially the body weight movements, is you can always find a way to scale them. When I say scale, I mean a way to do part of the movement, even if the whole movement isn't quite in your wheelhouse yet. So let's say someone can't do a squat. They can't do a body weight squat. They can't do it all the way down to the bottom, right? They're just, their legs aren't ready for it. Their hips are maybe a little bit too tight. That's totally fine. One of the best things that you can do is you can squat to an object. So you could put a chair or a stool, or a really common one that I've used is like a medicine ball. And you can have someone squat to that, and basically what it does is it simulates the real full movement, but you're adding just a little bit of support, you're adding a little bit of protection, and you're maybe preventing them from going all the way down to the bottom. So I've had some athletes that I've trained in the past where if I told them to squat all the way down, they would get below parallel and they would have no strength to stand back up, and they had to grab onto something or something like that to stand up. So the best way to develop strength is to reduce the range of motion just a little bit, and then we'll have them do a lot of reps there. The same thing goes for push-ups. So I've had people who can't quite do push-ups, and that's totally fine. A lot of times what I'll do is instead of putting them on their knees and having them do push-ups, I'll actually put whether it's like a smaller medicine ball or a little platform or like a couple rolled up yoga mats, I'll put that underneath of their chest and just have them do a push-up to that object. So imagine just like doing a push-up halfway down and then coming back up. And that's a great way, as long as they can keep their core tight and not, sag too much, that's a great way to help develop a push-up. So I'd say for all movements, whether it's a pull-up or a push-up or a pistol squat or, or handstands or really anything, an air squat, everything that you can do can be scaled down just a little bit so that you're doing the movement close to its fullest, iteration. You're doing the movement almost fully, but you just have a little bit of help helping you get there. And what's cool is, like in my example with push-ups, you might start with something that's 8 inches. I use I don't know what your users use, but I use the American measurement system, right? Inches and feet. But let's say you start with, 8 inches or 10 inches of support underneath of you. And then slowly but surely you start reducing that support so that you're starting to do your push-ups deeper and deeper and deeper. that's what you can do with anything, is you start by giving yourself a lot of help, and then you slowly but surely decrease the amount of help you're giving yourself, and you'll slowly but surely start to get stronger and more comfortable. So that's what I recommend when it comes to bodyweight stuff. You can always scale it down a little bit and then slowly but surely work your way up.
Fantastic advice with the push-up. I really advise my people to stay away from doing push-up on their knees. The only thing you get good at is doing push-up on your knees, and you don't get the core part. But I teach people just to do a halfway push-up, but I'm going to use my small medicine balls and my yoga mats in the future. That's a fantastic advice, especially because you can do 10 with the ball and then move to a yoga block or whatever. Yes,
yoga block. That's I was actually trying to figure out that word. good call. So yeah, the reason I really like that, like to kind of dig a little bit deeper, is, you know, when you tell someone to do something halfway, a lot of times halfway will slowly but surely become 30% and 20% and 10%, right? So whenever I add that item or that object where they actually have to touch it, you can't shortcut that. So if I'm doing a push-up to, let's say, a yoga block, I got to touch it every single time. And you're going to know as soon as you shortchange yourself and you don't touch it, you know, we call that a no rep in CrossFit. So what's cool is basically adding that object keeps you accountable to make sure that you hit the full range of motion of, you know, what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I have a question on that one. When you tell your clients to do a push-up, is it the chest all the way down to the floor, or is it the army style, just under 90 degrees? Because I always advocate getting your chest all the way down, touching the ground, and getting up.
I'm a chest to ground guy as well, and the only thing I would say to that is I say chest to the ground, but it all depends on their body dimensions. But generally, I like to see your chest on the ground, but your hips stay slightly off the ground. And what that prevents is there are a lot of people who will lower themselves all the way down into a push-up, and then their knees touch, and then their quads touch, and then their hips and their belly button touches, and then their chest touches. And then when they start pushing up, it'll be the exact opposite. So that's what we call the worm. You know, people will worm down and worm up, and I generally don't like that. So I want them to keep their core tight, their butt slightly up in the air, and what that does is that prevents people from worming, and it keeps them nice and strong. And usually it means that they can do a lot less push-ups, but that's okay. We want them to maintain their core and not have their back overextend.
Fantastic. That's why I use your courses. I like it a lot. Then let's move into a little more of the fun stuff. When we use these bodyweight strength, the conditioning part, and that I use a lot, and I use a lot of your stuff, your double under, especially. It's my wife. She told me, it's like a couple of months, maybe 6 months ago, I found this guy online, and he has this fantastic free double under course, and she just started going over to our gym twice a day because she hates that she can't do double unders. And then she found this guy, Ben, that I said, who the hell is this guy? And I said, show me who this guy is. Oh, I know that guy. And since then, I think half of my gym is using your free videos for the double unders, and I'm sad to say it, you're better at teaching double unders than I am. So even though it's online, so I have a lot more doing double unders than, and I like the part that the people that don't like running, they like that the part of jump roping, and especially when they can do the double unders, it's a fantastic way getting in there. And I just like to say that because it's changed a lot for a lot of people. But
awesome.
How is your look on using the jump rope as a conditioning tool?
Yeah, so jump roping, you know, I don't dig into the statistics too much. Like, I'm not I respect science, and when it comes to like supplements and stuff like that, I only care about science. But when it comes to like biochemistry and biomechanics, I don't know how many calories running burns versus rowing versus jump rope, stuff like that. But I did see the other day that per hour, jump roping is one of the best exercises that you can possibly do from a calorie burn perspective. Jump roping beats out running, it beats out playing sports, it beats out like all kind rowing, biking, all kinds of stuff. So my thing with jump rope is that I think it's a great way to practice both conditioning and coordination. It's one of the few movements, if you can run down the street and you can get from point A to B regardless of how coordinated you are. If you're really uncoordinated, you might fall over a couple times, but generally you can get from point A to point B and there's no coordination involved. What's cool about jump roping is the only way you're going to jump rope is if you have some timing, you have some coordination, and basically that hand-eye foot coordination is kind of a whole different aspect of fitness, and I really, really like it. Like, you can hop on a row machine, you can hop on a bike, you can hop on a lot of things, and there's no coordination involved, really. But when it comes to jump roping, there's always some sort of coordination. So I am a huge fan of it. I really like it. The only thing is, people have to make sure that they're jumping properly. We got to make sure that we're bending our knees, we're bending a little bit at the hip. We're not just putting all of the pressure on our calves and our Achilles tendon. So I've seen some people who have like hurt their Achilles tendon just, jumping rope right away. So you have to make sure that you're prepared for it. And I wouldn't overdo it. So if you have someone who every time it's, there's supposed to be a run, all they do is they substitute jump roping, that might be a little bit tough on their knees and ankles and stuff like that. But I am a very big fan of jump roping in general. And then, of course, double unders, that's a whole different ball game. Double unders is an extreme level of coordination and timing, along with an excellent, cardiovascular endurance test. So, and shoulder fatigue. I mean, it's great. It's really just a great exercise that I love doing myself. It's one of my favorite movements, and it's also obviously one of my favorites to teach. I think there's just so many cool ways that you can teach it. So I'm a very big fan. And another cool, little side note is that you can jump rope anywhere, right? As long as you have a ceiling tall enough, you can take your jump rope. Let's say you travel a lot for business, it doesn't matter. You can take a jump rope, and most places you're going to be able to find a little place to jump, and you can get a great workout just by jumping rope. I think it's a great tool for most people.
You said something here that I would like to get your advice on, that a lot of people sub running for jump roping. What are your preferred sub? Because I have a lot of my online clients asking if it's raining, it's cold, I don't like running. What do you advise subbing running for?
Well, when it comes to my athletes, a lot of times I give them tough love. So if someone says it's raining out, I will say, good, you won't get too hot, or let's say it's too cold out. And then I'll say, oh, well, that's even more reason to run so you can warm yourself up. So I give a lot of tough love when it comes to that kind of stuff. But realistically, let's say someone, it's dangerous for them to run outside, or, it really is too cold. It's icy, it's snowy, they're going to get hurt, whatever. Let's say they have a legitimate excuse that isn't just them trying to be a big baby. One of my favorite things to do, normally I will substitute some sort of rowing, because again, rowing is a little bit lower impact, but it's just kind of like a mindless thing. You just you just row, just like you just run. Well, you can just row. The same thing goes for bike. If you happen to be, in an area that has like a stationary bike, that's a great way to do it. And then just like we mentioned earlier, doing jump roping is fine. You could do single unders or double unders. I would just be careful, if it's let's say there's like a 5-minute run. Well, 5 minutes of jumping rope is going to be very, very exhausting compared to a 5-minute run. So you always want to scale down a little bit. Usually you can substitute a row, pretty much directly with a run. Let's say it's, run for 5 minutes. Well, you can row for 5 minutes and, probably burn just a little bit less calories, and there's going to be a little bit less impact. But if you say jump rope for 5 minutes straight, oh man, that's exhausting just thinking about it. So I would just say be cautious substituting jump rope. Just make sure that you maybe scale down the time or the reps just to make sure that you're not overdoing it.
Fantastic. Nice advice. I would like to talk a little about some of your courses. If we take it up a notch, people have gotten their strength base, people that would like to move their strength a little further. I'm on your emailing list, and I just bought a couple of weeks ago before I went on vacation your new bar muscle up course, because I can do one, but I cannot set them together, and it looks like hell. And I'm starting the course on Monday, and I'm looking very much forward to this. But I know you have a fantastic course on ring muscle up. That's my next part. But if you would like to take your training to the next level, what would you advise? I'm just very fond of the bar muscle up, as we talked about before. You can do it anywhere. Usually it just needs some kind of a park or playground where you can train this, and I very much like this, especially with the pull up, and I think it's a very, very functional movement for a lot of people, and it's missing for a lot of people, and it just brings, when you have the strength, a lot more fun and enjoyment, and it just looks cool.
Absolutely.
How do you say if somebody would like to get in? Is there something you need to do before you move into? My advice would start with the bar and then move on to the rings secondary, because there's a lot of stability you need to learn in the rings before you do get on that.
Yep, definitely. So, I mean, there's a few things there. So, number one, we, here at WOD Prep, I have several courses, and I have a lot more courses on the way. So if you have a specific skill that you're working on, like you mentioned, there's bar muscle ups. I have a course for that. Ring muscle ups. I have a course for that. Double unders, how to learn double unders. I have a course for that. And all of these courses are basically step-by-step progressions where you can learn exactly how to do these movements. And I give you little, basically, pieces of programming that you can add into your normal workout. So it really only takes about 15 minutes a day, 2 to 3 times per week. And for most people, as long as they follow the programming, I can get them, muscle ups or double unders or bar muscle ups or, whatever. I will be releasing some strict pull-up training, some kipping pull-up training, some snatch and Olympic lifting training, some handstand walking training, some handstand push-ups training. So there's still a lot more courses that I'm going to be releasing over the next, 6 to 8 months. So if anybody here listening to this wants to get in on that, I'm sure there'll be show notes where, you can find a way to get in touch with me, and we'll come up with the best plan of action for you to take them. Now, when it comes to learning, let's say something like muscle-ups, for example, I totally agree with you. Bar muscle-ups are another one of my favorite movements, and that's because, like you said, at a park, like it's funny, actually, 2 days ago, I was in Australia, and I walked from, I think it's called Coogee Beach or something like that. I walked from there to Bondi Beach. It's about a 2-mile walk, or actually a little bit over 3 miles. And along that walk, there was like 5 different stations that all had various pull-up bars and like outdoor gyms. And at every single station, I hopped up and I did like 10 bar muscle ups or something like that. And it was really cool because it's just a fun movement. They're really cool looking, so you can impress your friends. But mainly, it's a combination of strength and power and coordination. People who are really strong can knock out a lot of strict pull-ups. It's pretty easy. You can just, you basically just pull up and you do them. But a lot of those very strong people cannot do bar muscle-ups because they don't have the coordination, or they don't have the power or the body control to actually do one. So that's why I like them so much. They require strength, power, coordination, flexibility, pretty much grip strength. I mean, you name it, the bar muscle up has it. So that's why I really like it. Now, when it comes to actually learning things like bar muscle ups, usually my recommendation is, let's see, 6-4-6, I think is the thing I use. So basically, I would like for you to be able to do at least 6 strict pull-ups in a row. So these are kind of prerequisites to know whether or not you're ready to learn a bar muscle ups. So 6-4-6. So we have 6 strict pull-ups in a row, 4 kipping chest to bar pull-ups in a row. And that's especially if you're learning a kipping bar muscle up. If you're learning a strict bar muscle up, you don't have to be good at kipping, but you're probably going to need to be a little bit stronger than just 6 strict pull-ups. But for most people, I teach them kipping first, and then we eventually develop a nice strict one if they so choose. And then also 6 kipping toes to bar. And that's something that not many people know, and a lot of people outside of CrossFit have never even trained a toes to bar. But basically, a toes to bar involves, flicking your toes up towards the bar. And if you're going to do them effectively, you have to have very strong lats and you have to have a strong core. So that's why I like those 3 movements: strict pull-ups, kipping chest to bar, and kipping toes to bar are the 3 prerequisites I'm looking for before someone attempts bar muscle ups. So now when it comes to muscle ups, I definitely agree that bar muscle ups are the way to go. That's the first one that I learned, and it's the first one that many, many people learn because it's, it's a little bit more functional. It's more common in most fitness situations, and it's a little bit easier because you're dealing with a static, a non-moving object. And then eventually when people want to start working on, things like stability and get a little bit more fancy with it, then ring muscle ups can come after that. So that's generally my progression. And that's what I think about, my courses and muscle ups in general.
Fantastic. You talked just before about your courses, and you said handstand push-up and handstand walking. I have a lot of people, and I've given a lot of advice, people that would like to get out of the gym but still would like to train their shoulders in the push. Do you advise people to do handstands and then progress into handstand push-ups, or do you advise to stay away from standing on your hands if you don't have the shoulder strength?
Yeah, so again, this is a great example of something that you can do pretty much anywhere as long as you have a wall. So I like them. I think they're really good ways to train your shoulder strength. But you have to be very, very careful, because if you're upside down, if you fall, a lot of things can go wrong, right? So my suggestion in this example is you should only attempt handstand push-ups if you're comfortable getting upside down. So the first step is to make sure that you're comfortable kicking up on the wall. And then the next step is to do partial range of motion handstand push-ups. So just like we talked about with our normal push-ups, you can do partial range of motion handstand push-ups. So that's like, you take that same yoga block and you put that underneath your head for your handstand push-ups. Maybe you put 2 of them. So you're only having to move a few inches instead of, lots of inches to touch your head and then go back up into the handstand push-up. So there's a lot of different ways to scale it down. There's a lot of different ways to practice just kicking up onto the wall. I have a lot of videos for all these things, but it's just really important that step 1, you're comfortable getting on the wall. Step 2, you're strong enough to do the movement, which I think starts with, if you don't have any weights to train with, the best way to do it is to start by just holding yourself in a handstand against the wall. And that's going to be a great way to develop strength. And then you can start doing partial range of motion, partial reps. And then from there, you slowly but surely work your way down until you can do them fully. And that's, that's my progression for handstand push-ups. And yeah, if people are looking to get outside of the gym, I'd say shoulders are definitely a tougher movement to work on. It's easy to do air squats. It's easy to work on core, pull-ups, stuff like that. But shoulders can be a bit difficult if you don't have, like, let's say dips, or you can't do a ton of push-ups. That's a lot of chest work. So it's really hard to work on your overhead pressing. And, honestly, the best way to do it without any equipment and without any dumbbells and stuff like that is probably going to be the handstand. And I just think it's just a cool movement to have. Again, it works coordination, body control, strength. If you can kick yourself up into a handstand and, do push-ups or even walk on your hands, it's just a skill that, it was probably one of the coolest skills that I ever learned. And it took me a while. I mean, I was pretty competitive before I started learning how to walk on my hands. But now that I can do it, it's kind of like riding a bike. I feel like I'm going to be able to do it for the rest of my life.
Fantastic. I would love to say that I could do the same thing, but my handstand isn't that good. I have not been practicing the handstand walk that much.
That's all right. When I finally release my course, hopefully it should be within the next 6 months. I want to get it done before the spring of 2018. And when it's out, I will certainly let you know about it. And as you know, it's going to be all about just trying to do it nice and smart and controlled and make it work for anybody who's ready.
Fantastic. We've been a lot around the strength and training, and I always end my podcast with these interviews with your best advice, training advice for the beginner or the novice, for just everybody that everybody can use. What is your best advice for getting started or getting training done, or whatever you think is the best advice in training?
I think the best advice possible. There's a quote. I don't know who. I've read it in a book at some point probably, but action inspires action. And I think the best way to, a lot of people when they're beginners, let's say they're not into fitness and they want to get started, they look at fitness as this like really big thing, this big endeavor, this journey that they're going to go on, and they're like, they're just freaking out about it. Like imagine trying to hike Mount Everest. There's a ton of preparation involved, and you have to figure out what to pack, and are the right people going to be there to help you along the way, yada, 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 yada. And I think that is the wrong approach to fitness. I think even if it's like climbing Mount Everest, I think the first way that you should approach it is just take the first step, right? So that just means like, the first step is literally like, okay, I take one step in the right direction. So if we're using Mount Everest as the analogy, I'm at the base and I just take one step. And then I take the next step. And then I take the next step and the next one. And what's important is even if you don't feel prepared, even if you don't feel like you're ready, even if all the stars haven't aligned and everything isn't perfect, just do something, right? So one of the best things that you can do is to just, when you're ready to do a workout, just hop on YouTube or hop on anywhere and just find a quick, let's say you have 10 minutes, just type in 10-minute no equipment workout. Go on YouTube. There's a ton of good resources out there. I don't even know what'll show up, but chances are you'll find something. Do it. And then what's cool, the reason that I mentioned that quote, action inspires action, is that once you take the action and once you feel how easy it was to get started, it's a lot easier to keep going, right? So that's the key here is once you get started and once you kind of get on a roll, it's a lot easier to keep the roll going than it is to stop and then start back up again. So for most people, when they're trying to get into training or fitness, you'll see these people around New Year's they'll work out for 2 weeks and then they just stop, right? The goal is to not go in and out of training. It's just to keep going, to try not to break the chain, to just keep the ball rolling, have fun with it. And when in doubt, just know that, there's tons of resources online that can help you out, and don't be afraid to just take a little bit of action, because if you take action, chances are you're going to realize it wasn't so difficult and you're going to come back and want to do some more.
Fantastic. That's a very nice advice. And then the second question I always ask, what is your best health advice?
Best health advice. I would say one of the best things that I ever did from a health perspective, and this is honestly like a mental health thing, is I try to have a very predictable evening and morning routine. Even if those times shift a little bit, it's really important for me to every night before I go to bed, I like turn off all my electronics. I don't even have my phone next to my bed. And I turn it off and, I set my alarm. I actually have a separate alarm clock that I use because I don't want to be tethered to my phone at all times. And then I just read. And I read an actual physical book by light, by just a normal, lamp by my bed. And I read for anywhere between, sometimes 10 minutes is all I have, and then I just fall asleep. Or sometimes I read for an hour and a half. But just the act of reading and getting my mind off of the daily activities really helps get me prepared for bed, and it helps me get away from my electronics, and it helps calm my mind. And then to piggyback on that, as soon as my alarm goes off, I wake up. I am in the no snooze club, and I'm never going back. So I used to, in college, I used to hit the snooze button all the time because every time I thought that extra 5-10 minutes of sleep would help me, magically wake up and recover more. And the fact of the matter is, I think it just makes you more tired, and it trains your procrastination muscles. And I don't like that. So when I set my alarm, I have the intention of waking myself up at that time. And as soon as that alarm goes off, I spring out of bed. And it probably helps that my alarm is really loud and it's really far from my bed. So the only way for me to turn it off is to get out of my bed and get the day started. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is in the morning, every single morning when I wake up and I turn off my alarm, the first thing I do is walk to my kitchen, pour myself a glass of water, and just chug it because hydration is probably one of the most important aspects of fitness or just health in general. And almost everyone is dehydrated, especially when you wake up in the morning because you hadn't had anything to drink in about 8 hours. So the first thing you should do after you spring out of bed, don't hit the snooze alarm, is go and pour yourself a big old glass of, I just usually do lukewarm, water from my little water filter thing. And I chug that first thing about, usually it's about 24 ounces. And that's it. That's how I start my day. And then I have various other things that I do. But I just think it's really good for my sanity and my health to just, have a predictable wind down at night and a predictable wake up in the morning. And those things, that's one of my biggest tips for people who want to start getting control of their health and fitness.
Fantastic. That's very, very easy and very, very useful tricks. I like it a lot. How do people find more about Ben and the fantastic WOD Prep courses I've been talking about?
Yeah, so if you want to get in contact with me, one of the best ways to do it is to go to wodprep.com. So that's WODPREP.com. And if you go there on the page, you'll see a bunch of different free training guides that you can get. Pick one that is closest to what you're working on. So right now, I think at the time of making this, you can download a free strict pull-up training course, a free bar muscle-up course, a free double-under course, a free shoulder mobility course, a free ring muscle-up course, and there might be one or two other ones. And I'm sure there'll be more in the future. But just go download one of those free courses, and then you're going to get a series of some automatic emails. And just hit reply to one of the emails and tell me a little bit about your story. Tell them that you came from this podcast, and I'd love to just connect with you. And then another thing you can do once you've signed up for the email is to, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram and Facebook is just WODPrep, WODPREP. And on Instagram, a lot of times I post Instagram stories kind of like my daily life and my dogs, and I'll also post some full-length videos there. And then on Facebook, you'll see a lot of tutorial videos. And then last but not least, definitely YouTube. That's where I have all of my longer videos and longer tutorials where, you'll get kind of like deep dive breakdowns into how to do these specific movements. And that's pretty much it. So that's where you can find me. And I would love to work with you. And if you really want to take your training to the next level and learn any of those skills that I talked about, I certainly have a course that can help out.
Fantastic, Ben. I'll add all these links in the show notes so people just can get over and join you on your journey with all these fantastic courses. I like him a lot, and I've enjoyed all of them, and I can only tell people to take them. As you said, you like the way of making it more accessible and easy to understand, and I totally agree. You are very successful in doing that, and I would like to thank you a lot for being on this show and giving all this great knowledge.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor to be here, and I'm really looking forward to talking to anybody who took the time to listen.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, have a good one.
That was the show with Ben. Remember to go to online.crudio.dk. That is where you will find the little short link to podcast, and here you'll find the show called Ben. And here you'll find the links to all the content that Ben talked about, and all his free content and courses, being it handstand or muscle up, ring muscle ups, double unders. I can only tell you, join this. They're fantastic, free, and the paid information is even better. But share this site, and remember to sign up and subscribe to this so you get all the new updates. There will be new updates and new podcasts every week, at least once a week. That's the goal. So keep up with and subscribe to the channel, and go to online.cruodeo.dk. That is where you'll find a lot of information, and you'll find my blog and all the good things that we deliver here. So stay up to date with all the good things, and remember to subscribe and share all this content. Thank you.